well, welcome everybody to Cork House. It's kind of an unusual day today, although I think we can say that every day at Cork House is pretty unusual. It's just not a usual place, but today is a special day because we have a very special guest who isn't here all the time, Mr. Henry Jelinek the fourth, sitting right here beside me in this very room. And he, of course, is the visionary, thought leader, business entrepreneur, patriarch of the Jelinek family, author, writer, creative person, and all-around nice guy.
Well,
used to be the CEO of Jelinek Cork Group.
True.
Now he still has is kind of a leading voice in things, and
that's quite the introduction.
Well, it's true, isn't it?
It's a great compliment, but there are a lot of people behind Jelinek Cork today that deserve a lot of credit as well.
Okay.
And I'm now the quiet old man behind the scenes. So there you go.
Okay, behind the scenes, the guy behind the scenes, but still inspiring other people on the team and all that.
I try to do that, yes.
Very cool, very cool. Well, we're actually here today for a very specific reason, although we want to touch on some other things as well. You just finished, or recently finished, writing this amazing, just delightful book. And it says for ages 5 to 105.
Right.
It says that right on the back. So if you just want a little preview, synopsis of the book, go right to the back. But then, of course, read the whole book. So it's about Pedro, Adventures of a Cork Harvester, by yourself, of course, and illustrated by your colleague and friend, I believe, Cath Olivier.
Yes.
Beautifully illustrated. I mean, these are just really stunning pictures, but the language in the book is also stunning, I have to say. I read it twice now, and I discovered something new in the second time I read it. Okay. So I'm not going to remember everything, I'm sure, but you'll fill me in.
I'd like to, you're correct that it's a book for ages 5 to 105. And I would like to say the background of this is it's a children's book for adults or an adult book for children. I tried to make it that it's an all-around book for all ages.
I love that. Children's book for adults and an adult book for children.
Exactly,
so that
right.
covers everything. So, okay, I'm going to ask the hard question first because that'll make all the other questions easy. Or maybe this is an easy question, I don't know. But why? Why did you write this book? What motivated you? I mean, you've done so many things and you've written other books. Why did you feel you needed to write this?
That's an excellent question. And I've been going to Portugal now for I don't know how many years, 70 years probably, and maybe...
Since your childhood.
Since my childhood, and maybe 200-300 times during the course of those years. I've lived there, I've worked there, I apprenticed there, and I find that the Mediterranean lifestyle and the respect that adults have for children and children for adults, and the sense of the people's sense with the natural environment, I thought it's a tale that should be told. So I've tried to write that through this young boy called Pedro, and through his various adventures and how he feels about nature, how he feels about Cork, how he feels about life itself.
There he is. There's a picture of him.
There's Pedro hugging a cork tree.
Hugging a cork tree.
Yeah, so, because he loves the environment.
And this is specifically, I mean, cork, I guess, can grow in different parts of the Mediterranean on the coast, but ideally in Portugal. And maybe, is it safe to say in this particular region that you've specified in the book?
Yes, so Portugal is, you're correct, cork grows around the Mediterranean Sea, including North Africa, Spain, France, Italy, and southern France and parts of Italy. But Portugal comprises about 75 to 80% of all the cork in the world.
Wow. Okay.
And this region, called Alentejo, is the primary cork region of Portugal and therefore of the world. And it's a area that lies south of Lisbon, Portugal, and north of Algarve, which is the south of Portugal. So in central Portugal. And that's where the best cork and the majority of the cork comes from. And that's where this Pedro book is based, and where he and his family live and enjoy life.
Right. Now, okay, so this is, it seems it's the setting of the book is this region, and the city is Évora?
Évora is the town. It's a historical town, and it's the capital of the region of Alentejo.
Mm-hmm.
And Évora is a historical town, and this family lives a little ways outside of it, but very close to this beautiful city, by the way. It's a small town. It's a large town. It's really not a city, but it's a capital of the region.
But it's kind of an ideal setting for the cork forestry,
yes.
and also culturally it's kind of integrated into that whole...
Exactly, and it's not just cork. There's Alentejo, the county, let's call it a county, lies also on the sea, so there is fishing involved. Portugal is very well known for their sardines and their cod.
And you include that information in a very story-like way.
I try to include all of this information in a fun way through Pedro's adventures, and he has many of them.
That definitely comes across.
You know, having read the book.
So, okay, so tell me about, just to back up a little bit, because some people have heard of cork. Most people have heard of cork. They know what it is, sort of. But part of the reason for writing a book for adults and children, and doing it in such a way that seamlessly tells an interesting story, but also integrates the important facts about what cork is and why it's important. Why don't you just kind of give us a little synopsis of why is this important? Why is cork important?
Although most people know of cork, they immediately think of either wine corks or bulletin boards. And I wanted, especially for the younger people, to start learning how important the cork forests of the world are to the environment and the well-being of the whole world. It's the cork forests of Portugal are only the second largest biodiverse forests in the world, next to the Amazon basin in South America.
That's remarkable,
It is remarkable. And they are home to a lot of species, a lot of animals that rely on these forests for survival. So if these cork trees were to disappear, it would have a major impact not only on Portugal but on the whole world environment. So I wanted to portray that again through Pedro, how important this is.
And it definitely comes across.
I also wanted to show that cork is much more than wine corks or bulletin boards. It's a product I mention in the book. It's a product that is said to be somewhere in every office and every home, whether you know it or not. It can be from gaskets that are used in electrical components to flooring, to walls and ceilings, and it just goes on and on. And so it's a very technical product in certain cases. It's used in industries that one wouldn't think of, and so
The versatility is pretty amazing
Yes,
too.
it's
And I mean, it really connects. When you put it that way, it sort of connects this rather arcane concept to some people to everyday life, and as well as to industry, as well as to
exactly
the larger
right.
culture.
Exactly right. So it plays a role. Cork generally, and the forests in particular, play a role in the well-being of the human race in various degrees.
Well said. I think
Yeah.
that sums it up very nicely. Okay, so Henry, what anything we need to know or we should know about Pedro himself? I mean, it's in the third person, but you do have and there's dialogue obviously, but you're kind of communicating the story through this voice.
Pedro came to being through my various years of living and working in Portugal, and especially when I was working the cork forests myself and learning how to do
I didn't know that. So you actually did this.
Oh, yes.
This whole process that
many
you're
times.
talking.
So I have.
No wonder you know it so well.
I have to admit to you that Pedro, in a way, is me.
I was going to ask you, is this somewhat autobiographical? But I thought, oh well, that's just a lame question.
No,
But-
it is.
Okay.
It's very much so.
Okay, very
And,
cool.
you know, all the adventures that he goes through, I experienced in one way or the other than with his girlfriend at the end, Marta, that I made up for a nice ending.
Oh, okay. It is a very nice ending. It sort of
Yeah.
brings it to a nice close. I mean, but that's a festival. Is that
The
a
festival
important?
is it's a very important festival, and Portugal is well known for festivals,
Yeah.
and that's one of them.
So it's a good way to continue the thread of connecting, you know, the technical, the agricultural, the customs to the culture of the region too.
Yes,
Right.
and I'd like to stress though again, as we started off, this Mediterranean lifestyle. It's so important. You know, I mentioned that adults respect children and children respect adults, and it's something I think that lacks at times in this world we live in. And in this region of Alentejo and this town of Évora in Portugal, it's so obvious how well these people live, how comfortably, and it's not necessarily financially well, but between themselves, the rapport they have, they share together, they laugh together, they cry together, and it's just such a good human feeling that they have with each other. And it's another aspect of why I wrote this book, is because I wanted to show to people that it's possible to be united and happy together as long as everyone respects one another, as they do in this particular region.
And that's a wonderful lesson to take away from this story too. I was kind of struck by, kind of alluding to what you just said, the spirit of collaboration
Exactly.
that is pervasive throughout not only the whole process of harvesting the cork and preparing for the harvest and after the harvest, and
Sure.
but just the whole spirit of working together, learning together, figuring out problems together, in the spirit of helping each other and communicating, which, as you
Yes.
said, is a little, we're kind of teetering on the loss of that.
I think so. I think
thing.
so.
Yeah.
And of course, the story does say, you mentioned harvesting. Harvesting will be interesting for people who don't know anything about it, because cork, you peel the bark off the tree, basically, and it doesn't kill the tree. And
I think everybody's kind of struck by that.
Yes.
It's like, wow.
yes, it's a
How can that be?
renewable resource, and the book tells you exactly how it's done, and how these trees, how remarkable these trees are. Incidentally, cork oak trees are somewhat related to the live oaks that are here in Savannah.
Those beautiful trees that we
Yes,
have right
yes,
here.
Exactly.
Yep.
Of course, these trees here, these wonderful trees, don't have the bark that can be used as cork. Is the reason the cork oaks have this special bark, which is the cork that all the products are made out of, is because of the unique climate. It's dry, and yet you get the salt coming off of the sea, and this is a protective shell that is built on the cork oaks.
Oh, okay. I wasn't
So
aware
that
of
it can survive. There's a scene in one of the adventures in the book is where there is a forest fire.
Yes, one of his
And
adventures.
that scene, the eucalyptus
There's a
trees,
picture of that scene.
exactly, the eucalyptus trees are the ones that are burning. And although cork trees can smolder, they will not burn, and they survive forest fires. And that shows you the remarkable insulating properties of the bark on the tree. It even protects the tree, and if you put it on your walls, ceilings, floors, it will protect those as well in its natural form. So
It's quite a remarkable
Yeah.
thing, yeah. Okay, since you mentioned that particular adventure, and again, there's a lot of imagery in here. I'm not talking about the illustrations, but imagery through words, the language that you use. So I just want to read just a little excerpt of that scene that you just described. 30 minutes later, the two brothers reached the eucalyptus grove, a bouquet of lightning, smoke, and fire already mingling in the blackening sky. Much of the underbrush is ablaze, and many trees are now ignited. The flames seem to have a life of their own. They jump like acrobats in a circus, some detonating small pockets of eucalyptus oils trapped within the trees, thrusting flames skyward like fireworks during festival celebrations. Sparks begin flying, hot shooting stars rain down, creating an increasing inferno. The boys beat at the brush with their branches, and their bodies turning black from smoke, heat, and soot. Although not even aware of it, Pedro again loses his hat. I just think that's such a beautiful, as there are many throughout the book, where you set
Thank
the
you.
scene, describe the scene. Yes, the illustrations are stunning. Thank you, Cath Olivier. But the language that you use stands on its own to create the picture. And I think that's so important in storytelling. You do it
Yes,
beautifully.
I think it's important as well. And the passage you read, you see, that passage may be a little difficult for very young children, but if it's read to them, they certainly will understand it.
I think so.
And that's why I say this book spans all the ages.
It does. It does
Yes.
indeed. Okay, and that's the only passage, by the way, we're going to read, because you really need to read the book yourself to get your own experience of it. Okay, so there are a lot of other adventures. We won't give the story away now, but what I would like to hear is what you wrote. Other books, obviously. You're an accomplished author as well as the other things. Did you have a specific process for writing this book? I mean, did you have an outline? Did you just have the story in your head and just kind of started writing it, or how did you do it?
As I said initially, the reason I wrote it, I don't have to repeat, but how I did it, I didn't really need an outline because, as I say, Pedro is based on my own experiences. So therefore, my life was sort of the outline for this book.
Okay, fair enough.
The collaboration between myself and Cath Olivier, the illustrator, was interesting. This was done during COVID, and I was up in Canada at the time, and she is down here in Savannah. And we had lots of communications via email. I asked her exactly what I'd like to do. She added additional details here and there, and I think it came out quite nicely. She did a great job.
She did, yes. And you did a great job. So was there anything challenging? Were there any particular challenges to writing the book?
Every book is a challenge.
Silly question, right?
Every book is a challenge, and has to be reworked over and over again a number of times. But having lived the Pedro story, it made it easier. Because although it's a book of fiction, it's based on certain experiences that I had, and therefore that makes it easier to write.
Sure, it's very much a part of you. It's in you already. Okay, so I want to ask, what do you want people, if they've read the book, and I do want to emphasize that, some of the key points that we want to remember about Cork and what makes it so important, you actually do highlight with these very nice little tree ring snippets
right.
throughout the book, which it kind of serves as a really nice reminder of what you've told us through the story of Pedro and his adventures. It's a great teaching tool, among other things. What would you like for people to take away from this? I mean, there are a number of things to take away, I know, but
yes, I was just going to say there are a number of things, and I'm glad you used the word a teaching tool, because one of the things I am hopeful for with this book is that it will be used in classrooms by teachers to show various things that I wanted to highlight. And so to answer your question directly is, of course, one is to learn about Cork. That's a natural. But the other is to learn about this lifestyle, this healthy lifestyle that the population in this region of the world follows and lives by, and that in this difficult age that we're living in right now, there are pockets in the world where people overcome that and work together to make life better. And if we could only spread that tale around the world, it would certainly make everything a much happier place. And it shows that you can have a happy life without having too much money. Let's not focus on that area. You can have a happy life without having too many materialistic things. And these people who live here have shown that to me over the 70 years I've been going to Portugal. And I wanted to pass that on to others.
I love that, yeah. And I think that concept of, you can be happy, it's a great learning opportunity for people to grow and live together peacefully in harmony without stuff.
Yeah.
Notice there are no cell phones at our interview here today. And this is something that's kind of paramount in the whole concept of CorkHouse, is this idea of community, and that you don't have to have lots of gadgetry. You don't have to have lots of stuff taking up your life to get things done and get things done well. And,
Very well said. You don't have to have the stuff, and you can live by nature in a community of friendship.
Beautiful. All right, well, with that in mind, why don't we talk a little bit about some of your other work, if that's okay?
We can do that quickly.
I read this, and of course, it's a very different type of writing.
Yes.
It's encyclopedic, but in a good way. And then this other book, which I was not familiar with.
This book, On Thin Ice, was my first book. I'm a co-author with a writer, Anne Pinchot. Sadly, she's passed away now, but it's a history of our family. It was published quite a few years ago by Prentice Hall, and it tells the story of our family. We escaped from Czechoslovakia after the Second World War, and as I was telling you before we went on camera, it reminds me of what's going on in the world right now in the Ukraine, where over 4 million people have escaped that country to get away from the bombing and the disasters that President Putin of Russia has created. And our family also escaped because of the Russians. We escaped communism. Our home and our business was taken over by the communists and nationalized, and we had no alternative but to escape, and we resettled in Canada after that and started a new life again. And that's what this book is about.
On Thin Ice.
On Thin Ice, yes.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story. All of them are remarkable stories in their own unique way. It's a remarkable family. And I just want to remind everybody that for this particular book, Pedro, The Adventures of a Cork Harvester, we are going to have a special book signing party event featuring Mr. Henry Jelinek and the book's illustrator, Cath Olivier. And that's going to happen Thursday, May 12th, right here at 230 West Bay Street at the Cork House from 5 to 7 p.m. So please join us if you're in Savannah, or just come to Savannah and be here for a very special event and get a copy of this wonderful new book. Thank you so much, Henry.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
And we'll see you on the 12th
All right.
of May.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.